I am pleased to bring some church announcements this morning for Grace Fellowship. Firstly, I'd like to thank Grace, who just led us in worship. And this is pre-recorded, so I haven't heard yet what Grace has presented this morning. But in advance, I'm very confident of what Grace would have brought. So thank you, Grace, this morning. One of the announcements I'd like to bring this morning is that the block of land that we have set out to purchase actually settles tomorrow. We will be the owners of it on the 29th of June. And that's just a fantastic outcome. And there's been a lot of special things that have happened along the way for that to happen. And one of those right at the end is that Hayden, our vendor, who has been very patient with us in desiring that we would be the successful purchasers of the land, and who would love nothing more than to see a block of land or a church on that block of land. And he recognised the need to have that all said and done before the end of the financial year. And settlement date was not until the 24th of July. With a bit of extra work, we've been able to get that brought forward, and everything has fallen in line for it to settle before the end of the financial year. And with Hayden having blessed us, we're certainly pleased to be able to bless him in that way. So one of the near future things, another announcement, is that we can go up and have a sausage sizzle on that land in the near future. We don't we don't have the permit to build yet, so we won't do anything too raucous. But we will go up and have a sausage sizzle on the property, and then we can just be there as a church. Those of you who haven't looked at it can look at it, walk around it, and we can pray and give thanks to the Lord. And the Bible says that every place on which our foot shall tread, He has given it to us. And while we're there, I hope some youth would come and enjoy the space as well. I'm sure they would. And those of us adults who are good at bending over, I think we could put maybe half an hour into picking up the debris that's fallen under those river red gums, cause ourselves to have a pile of firewood over in the corner, accessible for camps, and the pizza oven will build when we build the church. And that'll enable us to be able to get in under those trees with the mower, with the whippersnipper, and keep the property together. So I think a sausage sizzle, a little bit of energy expenditure, and some thanks to the Lord a couple of weeks from now, and we'll give you a date. And the third thing, just recognising the need to pray and fast regularly, to come into that mode of prayer and fasting. We know that Jesus says when you pray and fast, not if you pray and fast. When you pray and fast. And it's a part of getting things done God's way. I've seen mountains moved that we can't move ourselves. And I just feel, and it actually came out of the body, one of our members said, look, I feel we need to do some prayer and fasting in the near future. And another member's ear has picked up to that and said, I think we should pray, especially for some healing with some prayer and fasting. And so what I'm suggesting as pastor is that in a couple of weeks, or sometime next Sunday we'll give you some dates for a corporate prayer and fast. And I'm suggesting 3 days. And maybe one of those days we could pray specifically for healing. But what I'd like to do this week is ask you to reach out to us as pastors and send us on email or send us on text things that you might be concerned about that we can gather together and pray about corporately. We might not name everything, but we know that those things have been put to us and they're being covered in that time of prayer and fasting. So next Sunday, we'll give you a date that we can go into some corporate fasting in the way that you might like to do it. An example is just recently I've been engaging with a matter, not a negative matter, a positive matter, but a matter that needed to be explored and something I couldn't do on my own, and it's rattling around in my head and my heart and giving me a little bit of anxiety. And I decided I need to pray and fast about this. It came to that point. And so I did. I set aside 3 half days, 3 mornings where I didn't eat, and I prayed in those mornings. And by the 3rd day, I had my peace on the matter, and that matter is resolved. I'd like to talk about tithes and offerings this morning. And I'd like to thank the church for the regularity that it exhibits in giving, recognising many of our people mature in their faith and recognise that the church requires giving to keep it doing the things that God desires the church to be able to do. And it does exhibit a mature faith and a generous heart when tithes and offerings are as consistent as they are in Grace Fellowship. You know, we registered for JobKeeper at the beginning of this crisis because that was wise to do that, and only once in that period have we dipped below where we can put an application in for job seekers. So that's 1 fortnight that we dipped below, and the rest of the 3 months it's been on par. And I think that's a testimony. We can give praise to God on that, and it's also not a drain on the government either, which is just another good thing. And I'd like to talk about the offerings toward the land. So I'm talking about offerings here, the tithe being what we regularly give, and the offerings being the things that come up. And as you remember, toward the end of January or somewhere there, we had that special week where we took up a specific offering toward getting us over the line with that block of land. And how important was that? That week is the week that made the difference. And that week actually, by the grace of God, fell in. It was the last week that we could announce that at church. The whole church was together. It was almost a full crowd that day. Most of us were there. It was in the high 70s of people who were there, and they heard this call through the pastor that we needed to make a contribution that saw us get over the line. And that contribution did see us get over the line. And so thank you for that. Now that's 3 months ago. And since then, there's just been, and we haven't requested it, there's just been a rolling set of gifts that have come in for that vision. As I spoke a week or so ago, that the vision does attract resources. And God-given vision attracts resources. And people have been giving to that block of land or the future build. And I can name that number. $4,500 has come in the last 3 months. And it hasn't come in this way, but if you average that out, that's $375 a week that has come in. Some of the donations have been larger for those who can and will, and some of the donations have been smaller for those who can and will. But again, I want to thank you for the regularity, and I want to thank you for the generosity. And what can I say except, praise be to God.